Hi, I'm Mac McCarthy, and I help people with their breakups, limited beliefs, and situationships. Today, we're going to talk about how to stop thinking about your ex. Does EFT work? EFT is the emotional freedom technique. We'll get into that today. But of course, this comes up a lot. And the reality is, you're not going to be able to stop thinking about your ex. You're not going to be able to stop thinking about anything that you're trying to stop thinking about. So start with this. Whatever your desired thing is to stop thinking about, accept it. If you're angry at your ex, if you're angry at your boss, number one rule, number one thing to do is accept it. Now, that's the hard thing, right? There's some people that go, I won't accept it. I can't accept it. There's some times in your life when not accepting something drives you, right? I don't accept failure. I don't accept losing. I don't accept quitting. Those things work in sports. Those things work in certain fields of work. In relationships and breakups, no. There's some times when you're just going to have to accept something you really don't want to accept. You don't have to like it. You don't have to forgive the person. You don't have to be happy about it. But number one, you have to accept that it's reality. That's number one. Okay. That doesn't mean you're going to stop thinking about them, but it's going to help with that ping pong game or tennis game in your head that's telling you, well, they did this, but I did this. I'm angry at them, but I'm actually happy with them. I miss them. It's like, accept what happened. Accept what you're pushing away. Accept the fact that you're creating stories to push away the reality. That's number one. It's very difficult for a lot of people. EFT, the emotional freedom technique, which I'll get into in a little bit, is a way to accept the reality. And it's very difficult for people because it's just like eating food that you don't want to eat, right? It's like, you might have had some medicine when you were a kid, right? Where your mom was like, you got to take this, or your auntie or your grandma, whoever your caregiver was. And they were like, you got to take your medicine. You're like, it tastes so bad. Well, you got to accept that to get it down, right? So it's the same thing when you can't stop thinking about your ex. What is it about this breakup or this situation that you're just not accepting? And go to the part where you're telling stories. This is why I tell people to send in your story to writemac.com, and I'll break it down for you, because your stories a lot of times are narratives trying to sell you on what you want to believe, right? And what I do is when I break down your story, and we have a couple on deck, is I pick at it, I unpack it, I question some things, because the story you've come up with most of the time isn't serving you. It's actually making it worse. So number one, accept it. Number two, if you need to cry, cry. Do it in the presence of a friend that's going to accept that. Do it in your bedroom with the door closed. Having a good cry won't make you stop thinking about them, but once you release all those tears and emotion, you'll feel a little bit better. So if you fight crying, don't. Okay? I've literally known people over the years that I've worked with that cried all day at work. They were in and out of the bathroom after a breakup or a situation. And I used to think, wow, what's wrong with them? Because I could hold my emotions. I'm very emotionally stable in that way. But actually, that person that gets that cry out is going to do much better than the person that holds it in, because the person that holds it in is also holding in a lack of acceptance. They're actually thinking about it more, because when you cry, you get that hard emotion out of you. When you hyperventilate, cry. So there's a place for it, right? I don't think it's great to do in public, because then you put yourself in a really bad situation of embarrassment or guilt or shame. Not that you should feel that way, but people just naturally will come up to you and be like, are you okay? Are you okay? Are you all right? And they think they're helping you, but sometimes that makes you feel worse. So make sure you're doing a good cry whenever you need one. Just like if you think about it, when you have an upset stomach and you throw up, maybe that's a little bit graphic for people. doesn't it feel so much better to throw up than to sit on that for 45 minutes or an hour, right? And there's some other things that feel really good to empty your stomach too, right? So when you have a good cry, it doesn't cure the thing of stop thinking, but it helps, right? Number 3, EFT, the emotional freedom technique. This is something I've been trained in. I use it regularly with clients. I use it for myself. It's simplistic. It's easy to use. It works right away. It does nothing to hurt you. There's no pills to it. I've come across some therapists and coach, not all, that are against it because it's too easy. Okay. There's a lot of different variations of this tapping technique. But if someone wants to come on the show today, I'll demonstrate it, exactly how it works and how you can use it yourself. But what it does is it helps with acceptance and it helps with a new narrative. Okay. And I'll come back to EFT. So stay with me if you're interested in learning more about that. Just with all the things that are out there that have all this fluff to them. Hey, I'm going to get to this and then you can buy this thing and you can buy that. And then I'll tell you this and you could buy this book. EFT, what I'm going to show you today, if you stay tuned, it could work for headaches. It could work for conflicts at work. It doesn't erase everything, but in a moment, it can neutralize. So a lot of times what you're doing is you're angry, you're upset, you're hurt, and you're at 100, right? And you think, if I could just be happy again, that's a totally different emotion, right? What you want to get to is like 50 or 0, right? If you were 100 on hurt, on a scale of 1 to 10 of hurt, and you were a 10, you want to get back to 0, right? That's neutral. If you want to get back to happy, that's a whole nother spectrum. All right, I'll get deeper into that. Number 4, stop trying to fight it. Okay, this is a big one. Here's a good example. People that can't swim drown, right? So a lifeguard comes out to a pool or a beach, and this person's flapping. They're doing all this stuff. I can't swim. Help me, help me, help me, help me. They're going fucking nuts. The lifeguard's not going to get near them until they stop fighting it, because you're going to take the lifeguard out. If you're going like this, you're going to duck the lifeguard under the water. You're going to fight the lifeguard, and the lifeguard can't help you. Right? The person literally, they're calm down. Let me grab you. Let me take you into shore. Calm down, relax. If you are thinking about your ex, or you're thinking of anger and all these things, stop fighting it. Allow it to flow through your mind. Allow it to anger you. Allow it to hurt you. Allow it to let you cry. Okay? That's letting emotion go through you. That's going through something. When you bottle it up, it comes back up. When you bottle it up, it comes back up. Do you understand what I'm saying about this? Number 5, allow yourself to talk about it with the right people. Okay, I can't stress this enough. If it's not a therapist or a coach, it's the friend that would be the best person to listen. It's the friend that's the most compassionate, empathetic, you understand what I'm saying? It's not necessarily your best friend from high school who, I don't know, coaches high school football, is a rah guy and doesn't really want to listen for more than 5 minutes and has a great relationship himself. So he's just going to keep telling you, just get back out there. Allow yourself to talk about it with the right people. If you're an introvert, if you're quiet and you hold your feelings in, you need to talk about it. You need to get it off your chest. I've met people like this that are friends of mine that are kind of introverted and quiet. Well, I didn't want to talk to you about it, Mac. And then they just give like little bits. And then when they start opening up, they give more and they give more and they give more. It's like, find the right person and talk about it. All right? Because the thinking needs to get out of your head. Sometimes the thoughts that you have, once you get them out of your head, you're like, now the alternative to this is just journal it out. Don't just keep writing until your hand hurts, just to get it out of your head, because thinking stays in this little space, right? This is a big one. Accept that you are hurt. A lot of times with people, we start at a place where oh, I'm angry. Oh, they pissed me off. When I start doing this tapping technique and I go through it, we get real when it's like, I'm hurt. A lot of times the baseline of anger, someone hurt you. They hurt your feelings. They hurt you with what they said. A lot of times people, it's not fashionable to say that. And I don't blame people. I would be the same way. But when you get down to it, if you're hurting, accept that you're hurt, because you'll enable people to help you and help yourself. But if you got your fists up all the time, or you got your guard up all the time, no one's going to be able to help you, right? And maybe you look cool, maybe you look tough, but that's not going to stop you from thinking about your ex all the time. Number 7, what you resist persists. This is a common statement. Tony Robbins says this a lot. A lot of their coaches say it. It's true. So what's the answer to this? Don't resist it. Talk to people. Write it out in your journal. Do some EFT. Book a coaching session with myself, okay? Number 8, there is no true way to stop thinking about anything. So you're thinking, well, you didn't even tell us how to stop thinking about your ex. I'm telling you the way to stop thinking about them in a moment, okay? If you were with someone for 3-4 years, the only way would be amnesia. So there's your answer. I would not suggest you do amnesia or induce amnesia, okay? If you've been with someone that long, they're going to enter your thoughts. They're going to enter your thoughts, which leads me to number 9. Move to a new area, a new place. If that's not possible, stop going to places that remind you of them. Sounds really simplistic, right? This is how the human brain works. Oh, that's the cafe that we always had breakfast at. I remember when she fed me my croissant. People do this all the time. Stop going that way. Stop going by that cafe. Stop hurting yourself. Okay? Now, going back to number 8, there's no true way to stop thinking about anything, but there is a way to lessen it. But there is a way to neutralize it, right? Because the minute you start saying, I don't want to think about that, it just keeps going. So there was a study a long time ago. I've talked about this before about kids that were offered 2 chocolate chip cookies, 2 marshmallows, and you could do this with anything, right? We could do this with adults, with anything that's tempting, right? And the kid would be offered 1 chocolate chip cookie, but in 15 minutes, if they wait, they'll get a second chocolate chip cookie, right? Delayed gratification. A lot of times what you're doing post-breakup is you got to deal with delayed gratification, because you have to go through maybe no contact. You maybe have to go through crying. You maybe have to go through some moments where your friends are like, God, he's still talking about it? Yeah, I know. Think about the conversations the friends have. Yeah, I know. Like, he's a mess right now, or she's a mess. And you think like, oh, the friend just listened to you. You're going to have to go through all this stuff to get it to the other side of the tunnel, which is meeting someone of equal or higher value, right? And it's really difficult. But what's the alternative? Drugs, alcohol, hook up with as many randoms as you can. These are doable things. These are taking a bunch of pills, all these things. I'm not recommending these things, but these are the things that where you put off going through it, right? Where you put off the delayed gratification of coming out the other breakup tunnel clean, and you create a worse situation. Are you with me? All right, so let me get into the story today. Brand new Skinner, good to see you, buddy. Roller Girl, it's been a while. Rob IS, you've been away. I hope you're doing well. Rye Flint, always a pleasure. All right, so let's get into the 2 topics, and then maybe we'll circle back to EFT. If anyone wants to try EFT today, you're welcome to come on. I can send you a link. You would have to put your video on for EFT. So if anyone wants to learn about that. All right, so Coach, I wish I could just stop thinking about my ex so much. I've been broken up for over 8 months, and it feels like it's still a daily thing. I don't cry as much as I used to, but I do cry sometimes, just more like tears than full on. Well, I would say if you need to cry, cry. Do it in private or do it around people that respect that, but it's okay to cry and it actually helps you. So don't hold that in. That's actually a good thing. We were together for 2.5 years, and then we knew each other through university for 2 more years on top of that. This girl was my everything. We were inseparable. We had marriage and kids in our future. Okay, this is very common. Sometimes people have plans, and then God laughs, as people say sometimes, right? And the fact that you had these plans, it's okay. Accept it. They were plans that didn't work out. If you look at your life, there's been plenty of times that you could say like, oh man, I was planning on doing this, but I didn't do it. Okay. When we graduated university, we moved back to our homes, which was an 8-hour drive apart. And then we decided to grind out long distance. Well, the fact that you even say grind out means it's not good, right? Grind out long distance for a year, and we did long distance really well. But then all of a sudden she kept mentioning this guy she worked with, that he was her sort of boss at work. I never thought the guy was a threat because he was like 20 years older than her, but she really looked up to him. All right. So bottom line is long distance relationships. Whenever you do this, if you've never been in one before, you are going against the odds the longer the distance is there. So if the distance is going to be 6 months, a year, 2 years, and what happens a lot of times is people go, oh, we actually had to add on another year, another 3 months. But if you're going from full-time, rose petals and wine glasses and rose petals, intimate, great relationship to we're going to make it work, we're going to grind it out. If you live 8 hours apart and you're not seeing each other very much, it's going to dwindle. Someone's going to be left holding the bag, and eventually intimacy or lack of intimacy becomes a problem. Okay. And whoever's working with more individuals that create temptation or outs usually finds their out first. Do you understand what I mean by that? I never thought the guy was a threat. He's 20 years older than him. And also I would add, even if you weren't long distance, there's always a possibility of your partner, girlfriend, or boyfriend, husband or wife meeting someone at work. Okay. You spend more time at work than you do with your partner a lot of times with these 40, 30-hour schedules, although that's changing with online work. Also, the idea that you're working with someone that does something better than you and creates this figure that you look up to can be attractive. So like I said, if it might not just be the distance here, she could have still hooked up with this guy otherwise. But really quick lesson to remember, if you have a good relationship, do everything you can to avoid long distance if your relationship's going really well. And if you are going to do long distance, you should see each other once a month, twice a month, and you should have a finish line within 3 to 6 months, a year tops, of being back together in the same city. Then he was in the middle of a divorce, and they started getting dinner, which he said was nothing, but then she'd say that she couldn't talk to me because she had work to do. Then finally she broke down after I did some snooping on the guy's Facebook account and found that they had done a trip to the wine country together. It hurt bad. I confronted her. She admitted it was true. So I drove down to her that night and confronted the guy at work before she got there and turned it into a pretty dramatic scene. So this is when emotions take over. I'm not surprised. I don't think it's a good move, but my emotions weren't involved. So, you know, it's like Silver Linings Playbook, right? I had to be escorted out by security and she was crying. So this is a worst case scenario, right? You go and do something like this. You probably saw it in the movies. You know, you're a tough guy. You're going to fight for your woman. The reality is she told you she's seeing him already. Okay. She told me sorry, and we talked for that month online, but she kept telling me that I could do better. If you ever have a partner that says you can do better, translation means they could do better. I know that sounds harsh. I know that sounds counterintuitive, but really that's what they're saying. You can do better than me. She's saying that she can do better too, right? She's also saying, I've done something bad to you. Don't accept this. I've been being bad to you, okay? And ironically, no one likes to hear that when they want the person back. And that she didn't plan this, it just happened. And then she just blocked me on everything out of nowhere. I've sent a lot of emails, and now she's changed her email. I don't know how to get off this idea that she's not happy with this guy and that this guy is taking advantage of her at work. I believe he's been manipulating her a lot. Well, that's her. She's an adult, right? You guys are out of university. That's her journey to figure out. She doesn't want your help on that. This is a narrative you've spun out of your bias that could be true or could be something you really want to believe so that you can come in and save the day because she's being really manipulated like this. She's got to figure it out on her own. If there's a 20-year age gap, yeah, the odds are against her staying with this guy forever, okay, or for a long period of time. That being said, she needs to play it out. It's not going to be done by you coming down there and roughing up the guy at work, okay? This is not the way to go. I just care about her so much. So the idea that you just care about her so much would lead to this narrative that this guy's taking advantage of her at work. I'm wondering if there's a way to move on from this and just erase her from my mind. Well, amnesia, like I said, but you're not going to do that. So to erase her from my mind, I thought fighting for the relationship would mean something to her. And I went to a couple female coaches that told me what to text and another that told me what to write in emails. None of it worked. I could guess who these are. I've had a client or two that have mentioned a few female coaches that do this, that coach texting and coach letter writing. And they're really expensive. It can work in your particular case. From what you did from day one with showing up at the spot, you scared her. So you showed her a side of you that wasn't there before. You embarrassed her. And so even if you guys were, or if you were to get back together, that incident would have to, the dust would have to settle on that for a while. I don't think an email is just going to say sorry and she's going to get back with you. That being said, you know, you're working out different resources and different things. Now I just want to stop thinking about her. What do you think I should do? I've heard you mention EFT and hypnotherapy in other videos. How does that even work in a situation like this? All right, so for EFT, I'm going to pull this up on the screen real quick. Let's see if I can get this. Let's see if this shows up good. It's not very clear. Okay. So let me just show you this part of it. And this is something I teach clients. I've done training courses with. And this is what I wanted to pull up. So these are the tapping points, as you can see. These are actually meridian points on your body. And once you do the tapping, you'll actually just calm down right away. Okay. So if you see these, and I'm going to go through these with you today really quick. So let's see here. All right. Yeah, those are the tapping points. Can you see them? So the way you start this, let's see if we can. The way you start this, yeah, you got to see my whole, is you start with the karate chop, this tapping spot right here. And if you guys want to do this with me, you can. If you don't, so be it. So in this particular case, this guy can't stop thinking about his ex. He can't stop thinking about the guy manipulating his girlfriend at work. So that's a narrative. That's a part. So we can take that as one thing. So even though I can't stop thinking about my ex, and he would do this while he's tapping, even though I can't stop thinking about my ex, I'm okay. I accept it. I'm doing the best I can. And I know I always told her the truth. So the reason why I'm going with those things, what you want on the other end of even though are things that are true and that are going to even out that problem. So for example, even though I'm really hurt that my ex broke up with me for her boss, I'm okay. I accept it. I know I did my best. I forgive myself, and I'm doing the best I can right now. And then it would go like this. I'm hurt. I'm really hurt. I can't believe she's with this fucking guy. Why didn't she even tell me? I'm hurt. Next one. I can't stop thinking about her. Next one. I'm really hurt. She doesn't even call me. And then someone might flash to like, I know I'm getting better. And then right here where the collarbone is, I'm hurt. I'm upset. I can't believe she did this. And underneath the armpit at 6 inches about there, I'm really hurt about this. Even though I can't stop thinking about my ex, I'm okay. I accept it. I forgive myself for calling her. I'm doing the best I can. And I always told her the truth. God, just doing that feels good. So what you're doing right there, if you noticed, how many times did I say I'm hurt? How many times did I say I can't stop thinking about her? You're telling your system, accept it. And the more times you say that and you accept it, and then you counter it with something neutral, like, I'm okay. Now, when I learned this technique, you can say, I love and forgive myself, or I love and accept myself. A lot of people feel like that's a little heavy or a little bit too mushy. So I'm okay, I accept it because it's very neutral. And that's the goal, just to neutralize what you're feeling in the moment. So when your anxiety goes up, I want to call them. I can't believe they did this. I can't believe she's with another guy. We just want you to get to neutral where you accept it and you're okay. And you just get from here to here rather than happy's over here. Feeling great is over here. You just want to calm down that thing. And the crazy thing is, how much time did that take? It took 5 minutes. What I'll do is like 2 or 3 rounds I'll do with clients, right? And then we get you down to 0. And literally people go, where'd it go? Like, I did calm down from that. And a lot of times people are really like, they're almost embarrassed because they don't think it's that easy to get rid of something like that. Okay. And like I said, it's very quick. You'll see people at the airport doing this that know it, that are getting on a plane. It'll just calm you down. So if any of you like that, or you want to do a session where we implement that with some problems you're having with high anxiety, I'll give you your money back if you feel like it's something that's not useful or doesn't work. Okay. Because in my experience, it works for a lot of issues. It's very useful. It's very useful. And like I said, even when you just go into the tapping points, these are the same points that they use in acupressure, acupuncture. They're related to the heart. That's what a meridian point means. So that's an example of that. He asked about hypnotherapy. Hypnotherapy is just putting you into a calm, relaxed state, which is something that I have a protocol for, and then leading you into that state and talking to you about things that are helpful or useful narratives that are going to redirect the boat. So right now, let's say you're on a boat and you're in the middle of nowhere and you don't know where to go. It's post-breakup, you're lost, the motor's broke, or whatever, right? And you're headed towards no man's land. We just want to redirect the ship, redirect the narratives to a really nice island, to a place you want to go to. And I can do that in hypnotherapy. I can do that with hypnosis. The other part of hypnotherapy is just putting you in a calm, relaxed state and then asking you questions with your eyes closed, basically, and you in a calm, meditative state that's not so frantic. It's highly useful. And really, a lot of psychiatrists, a lot of therapists learn this technique and they use it. It's a great tool. And if you go to my other channel, Clean Mind Today, sharing that. You can see what a guided meditation is like, or a guided hypnosis. It's extremely good for going to sleep. So if you're having trouble sleeping post breakup or for anything, putting on one of these guided meditations before you sleep with some positive words is very good for you. I don't see any downfall of going to sleep with a guided meditation. I do it regularly. And I think probably we could all agree that sleep's maybe a top 5 thing in your life to be efficient about. It's very important. Now, what I'll do in a session is I might do a guided meditation or hypnosis that's tailored to you, and then you can listen to that before you go to sleep, and you're starting to reprogram some of those narratives that are spun in your head. And you won't know it, but in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or a month, all of a sudden you just start feeling better and you're looking at things differently. Your brain's a program. You're feeding it things. So when you're stuck and you can't stop thinking about your ex, you need to reprogram the narratives and the stories. Like the idea that the story I just read is, oh, her new boyfriend, who's also her boss, is manipulating her. Maybe that's true, but that's not your place to get involved because she hasn't asked for your help. All right. Anyone in the comments or anything like that, if you have a question, go ahead and put it in. I'm going to break down the next story here. Hold on a sec. Hello, Coach Mac. I recently broke up with my wife and business partner. That must be tough. Whenever you work with someone or they're their business partner and they're your partner or girlfriend or boyfriend, husband or wife, it's going to be difficult to break ties. We divided the business already, and now we are looking at a full-on divorce. Well, it's good that you did that first. Usually people do that during the divorce. There's no turning back to what she did, as she cheated on me with one of our staff. That would be extra tough because you got to see the guy. You might have hired him. The guy is a real loser, and it just disgusts me. I can't believe it. The funny thing is guys, when they find out someone's hooked up with their girlfriend or something, the guy's always a loser. The guy's always bad. I've never heard anyone go, oh man, he's a stand-up guy. He's really good for her. I can't believe it. I'm still in shock, but I can't even look at her. I didn't see it coming at all. We had a good relationship. I'll admit our sex life has been slow for years, but that's normal for married couples that are busy with work. Okay, so I'm just going to stop you right there. Doing this for over 5 years, almost 6 years now. Everyone thinks there's some kind of normalcy, if that's a word, to relationships. There's not. Your relationship, my relationship, everyone else's relationships. It's not the 1950s. We're not following the same rules and guidelines. Everyone's doing their own thing. Maybe people get married. Maybe they claim people, but what they do within their rooms in private would shock the hell out of you. So this idea, oh, it's normal for married couples to not be intimate for a while. I'll just say this, normal or not normal, it's not good. If you guys were hooking up when you first got together and you guys, were doing it like rabbits and you had a great honeymoon and all this other stuff, and then you just cut that off a cliff and, there's no reason for it, you got to make that an important part of your marriage. And I'm not saying that you need to do it 5 times a week, but once a week, twice a week, at least. And if that falls off, you need to talk about it. You need to have a constructive conversation about it, because otherwise you're just friends. You're family members, right? And when it falls off like that, it can be due to work. It also can be due to the fact that you're losing attraction. You're just not making time for it. A lot of clients, one of the biggest ones is they try and then they get rejected and then they just never try again. And the reality is, what are you doing in place of that? So you're saying to me, got this little flyaway all day here. You're saying to me, oh, we haven't done it, it's normal. So what are you putting in place of that? Are you doing semen retention? Or are you jerking off? What are you doing in place of that? Oh, we don't hook up very often. Because whatever you're doing in place of that they need to do something in place of that also, and it might be cheating. So when you're like, oh my God, they cheated. Oh, we haven't. I mean, years back, I've had a few clients and it's like, we're getting into this. They're all upset. They can't believe there's a breakup. Oh yeah. It's like, we've had sex twice this year. You didn't think that was a problem? Well, we've been together. We do other things. It's like, all right, address it. Maybe you guys aren't attracted to each other. Maybe it's not working. Maybe it's off. Okay. But the part of that is, if you're not getting it there or your partner's not getting it there, where are they getting it? We don't have kids, but we have 2 dogs that we are now talking about splitting up. It's just ridiculous. Well, I mean, I wouldn't split the dogs up. They're buddies. It's just ridiculous what she's given up on for a night of lust with some guy I know she has no plans of marrying or staying with. She confirmed that to me. Well, I mean, it's not ridiculous. I mean, this is why you send in your story to myself, because I'm going to be objective and non-biased. Bottom line, what you just wrote, you're like, oh, we haven't been intimate. I'll admit our sex life has been slow for years. And the idea that you wrote slow means that you didn't want to divulge numbers. Right? Because if I was doing a live coaching, I said, what is it? Once a month? Once every 2 months? Like, that's a problem because you're not even practicing, right? So when you tell me, oh, yeah, I don't know what it was, that could be one of it, right? Deprivation. One of the things that I've heard of therapists doing, Milton Erickson used to do this with clients when they were having trouble with sex issues, is that you would actually tell them to not have sex, to restrict yourself from having sex, but sleep together. So instead of like having this awkward feeling of like, oh, I should make a move or something, you tell your mind, no, we can't do anything, but we have to sleep together. So your mind has a different story running, and the results usually are different because now the story isn't, oh, I'm going to get rejected. The story isn't, you never want to do it. The story is like, we can't. And sometimes for certain people, that's effective in getting them turned on. Staying with me, she confirmed me. The hardest part is the way I found out was going through her phone while she was asleep. I just had this intuition to check, as she had been on her phone all week a lot. And I thought, screw it, I'm going to check. It wasn't just dirty text. It was naked photos of the guy's junk. And I just can't break the image of my head. It's gross. So, I mean, bottom line is you do need to get a divorce then. I would say you're not going to let that go for a long time. Images stay in the mind. These are going to be issues for a while. You're not going to trust her. I'm wondering now, why am I having all these dreams about her in showers and baths? It's strange. Have you ever heard of this before? Yes, I have. And if you're having a dream about an ex, I don't know all about, I don't have a dream book out or anything like that. But if you're having dreams about an ex with baths and showers, it usually means you think they're dirty or they've been doing something dirty. And for your specific situation, you're disgusted with her. So that's where that's coming from. I know that because I've had a dream like that about an ex before, and I looked it up in a dream book, and it made a lot of sense to me, whether that makes sense to you or not. And dreams post-breakup are very common, where you're like, oh, I haven't had dreams like this before. They're so real. They're so vivid. Very common. Very common because it's on your mind. Dreams are something that you're trying to make metaphor and make sense of. They come in a metaphorical way, and that's why you're like, what does this mean? It means something to you. And I don't know if that sticks with you, but the fact that you just said it's gross and it's disgusting and you saw this other guy's junk that you work with, the fact that you're seeing her in showers and baths means that you want her to clean up, right? Or that you find her dirty. I also have a lot of built up anger, and I don't like being angry. How do I release this? So I just mentioned this EFT technique, emotional freedom technique. I do this in live coaching calls a lot. So even though I'm really angry right now, I'm okay. I accept it. I'm doing the best I can. I was a good partner. I did my best on my side. I'm angry. I can't believe she did this. I'm disgusted. It's just dirty. I can never see her the same way. And then you just go through the tapping and you say these things. Now, when I do this with a client, I usually lead. I lead with the words. You can certainly do it on your own. People like when someone leads and does it with them. It almost doubles the power. Again, if anyone wants to do this and come on the air, I'll do it with you. So EFT would work really good with that. Like I said, if you want to book a session on that, we can do it. That's not going to be, the whole session's not going to be EFT, even though I've done those before. Another side note about EFT, when you're angry, sometimes what I'll do with clients is, all right, say whatever you want. Go off the rails. And I've had guys like you fucking bitch. Like, yep. Like, go further with it. Get fucking angry. Get upset. Say all the mean things you want to say during the EFT technique. All the tapping. And you never fucking call them. Like, yeah. And I'll just go, I'll just agree. Now what you're doing is you're getting all those ill thoughts and ill feelings out. And then I'm sitting there just accepting them, holding space, being like, yeah, okay. Because you're thinking those ill thoughts and that meanness, that anger, it's not going to be received well by public, but you need to get it out, right? So you go through that and you might get upset, and it's good for you. So if you're angry, get the angry thoughts out while you're tapping, like, God, I just want to clock this guy. Go through it. Rob with 2 B's. Rob IS, is this your brother? Emotional. I just spelled emotional wrong. So call the grammar police. There's some people with grammar. It's so funny when you work online. You spelled it wrong. Get over it. Emotional freedom technique. If you want to look that up, but it works very well for situations like this to calm you down. Rob with 2 B's. If you want to come on right now, I'll do it with you. You will have to show your video on here, but it works really well, especially for anxiety. If you're at a 10 on anxiety, it'll bring you down to a 7 or 6, and then it'll bring you down to a 4. By the 3rd round, you should get to 0, and you should just be calm. If you're not getting lower, you got to change the statement. Even though I'm angry, I'm okay, I accept it. You got to change the statement so that your mind clicks and accepts that. If you don't accept the statement and it evens out, because that first statement is really important to it. I also have a lot of built up anger, trying to release. I'm thinking of moving to a new city, but a friend said I'm just running away, and that's not good. Look, if you're single and you only have a dog to take, move to a new city, new state, new country, whatever it is. Get excited about the city you're moving into. Don't move to a city where it's not cool to be single. People don't think about this shit. I tell them all the time. It's been on my channel before. Environments count. Move to an area you're excited about when you're single because you're in the dumps. Move to an area where it's going to be a good place for you to meet singles you'd want to meet because you're single now, right? So I don't want to hear, oh, there's no single people here. Don't move to some industrial area where, oh, the work's good here, right? What's your take on moving and the other stuff? Thank you for your time. I appreciate your channel. It's helped me a lot. Dan. I don't think he minds if I said his name's Dan. All right. So, bottom line is move. The thing that's really tough is when you get these texts. I talked about it yesterday, the text with pictures or video. It's just those kinds of things. You're not just going to have a talk about it and it's going to go away. They're imprinted on people. They disgust people. And then it's not just like, oh, you hooked up. It's detailed. It's graphic. And so for you to work that out, the other person has to be, number one, extremely sorry. because the other person's going to want to make you pay, right? You have to be extremely sorry. Number two, you're going to have to walk over broken glass for a little bit. They're going to want you to pay. They're not going to just let it go. Number three, best case scenario, maybe this is what needed to happen. And I've seen this before where the person that gets caught is like, oh no, I don't want this. I want to fight for the relationship. I'll do whatever it takes. I'll walk over broken glass. And the other person has to meet them halfway eventually. If the other person's not that sorry, or they're like, look, I don't know what to tell you. And in this case, you're overlooking the fact that there's been, water in the desert situation here. The guy that was your staff, he provided the D that you weren't providing. Think about that. You're overlooking that. Oh, we're married, so this is what normal couples do. They just don't have intimacy for a couple years, and it's just slow in that department. It's like, all right, believe what you want to believe. But the reality is, if someone's not getting it from you and they're, active, hold on a sec. Got to respond to this. Okay, so, and this is what happens when you take your attention away from something. It's called attention residue. It's hard to get back into the topic that you were into, but I had to take that text. It's important. All right, so going back to what we're talking about, how to stop thinking about your ex. You're never actually going to stop thinking about your ex fully and completely. Probably till you meet someone else, you're completely moved on. But even then, they'll sprinkle into your mind with a memory. Okay. Oh, we used to go here. It's just that the charge won't be there. Right. And the charge won't be there because you've moved on. You're doing all right. You've proved to yourself you can live without them. And the reality is you might have a sentimental moment or you might think they're great, but you just won't be as charged up about it. So the reality is, if you look at it, you're not going to ever forget about them, just like you don't forget about some buddy you had in high school that, for that year was your best friend. You guys used to ride bikes together or whatever. Like the minute you go ride a bike that you guys used to ride bikes together, then it's going to come up. It's going to come up in your mind, and really honor your memories. What you just have to do, and this is the hardest part for people, is accept reality. And for men, it's sometimes harder. For some reason, it's like, no, it couldn't be that. It couldn't be this. It's like, well, actually, she cheated on you. Oh, with this loser, actually, she cheated on you. Could it be possibly because you haven't had intimacy for the last 2 years? And whose fault is that? I don't know. You might sit there and go, you know what? She doesn't dress well. She doesn't do this. You know what I mean? She doesn't do that. All right. Well, why didn't you speak up? Why didn't you work on it? Because if you're in a relationship and you're married and you're letting your intimacy fall off a cliff, someone else will fucking pick that up. I do want to move from a city as soon as possible to avoid my problems that cause my anxiety, but I don't want to seem weak. Odd Carlo, if you want to come on right now, I'll do a EFT tapping with you. We can go through. It's great for anxiety. And the cool thing about this is I do a whole training on this. That's like a 2-day course, but I can just show you the basics right now. And like I said, therapists or people that charge a lot of money, they don't like this technique that much because it's too simple. All right. If everyone was just doing tapping and it was okay, I will say this. One thing that helps with someone like myself is I can help you pick the words. Because a lot of times, where do I start? Where do I start? I can help you with that. I'm pretty good at feeling out those words that'll even out the statement. And it's like, it's amazing when you can all right. You've heard of the statement that you need to find meaning in something, right? So this his wife ends up screwing the staff, right? It's hard to get over that. Okay. So he's got to accept that. But he's got to find some kind of narrative or reason that he could fucking live with, because the ping pong game that's going in his head is like, I still love her. I can't believe she did this. You know what I'm saying? Instead of, even though she did this, I know I did my best. I'm okay. I accept it. And I'm doing the best I can right now. If that's acceptable for him, then he's just evened it out. He's just balanced that thought. There's so much power in that. And then going through it like, I'm hurt. Now you went through your whole body and you accepted that thought. You calm down. Your body doesn't tense up because you just made it reality. But I've had a few clients that are like, no, I can't accept that. It's all right. Well, you're going to have the problem for a while. Some people like being angry. Some people like having some fight. And that's when you have a secondary gain. Secondary gain means like it's more than just losing your wife, or it's more than she messed around. It's also that you're scared to be alone. There's more things to it. And those come up while you tap through the spots. So probably, Odd Carlo, what happened is someone told you it was weak, so that's in your mind. But the reality is they don't live your life. So if you have the right reasons to move to San Antonio, which is where I think you were thinking about moving, then fucking go for it. Because the person that's making that suggestion or that comment from the cheap seats, oh man, you're weak to move to another country, probably they want you to stay because they're good friends, or they want you to stay miserable with them, or they think, oh, you'd be so happy here because I'm so happy here. What they're doing is they're just imposing their thoughts onto you. The reality is, the problems that you have with your anxiety, I don't know if moving a new city would be fixed. But if we did a live coaching session together, we could unpack that. Because I don't know if you're being triggered by patterns or individual things, right? Now, a breakup to me, a lot of times you're being triggered by the places you used to go to, about the room you slept in together. So to me, a moves, and for me, it worked for me in my life, okay, multiple times. I will say this, if you've never moved before, the first 2 or 3 months aren't easy sometimes. It's not exactly comfortable. It's like putting on a pair of shoes you need to break in. It's not all great. I moved to Paradise, and for the first 2 weeks or 3 weeks, I'm like, oh, like, because things are off. You have to figure out things. But here's the interesting thing. When you got to figure out new things, there's less anxiety, I think. Oh, okay, Odd Carlo. No worries, buddy. You're in Norway, right? I actually have a client that's moving to Norway from Thailand. Yeah, man, that's a good dad. My dad told me I didn't have. It's so funny. It sounds like a little kid, huh? Thanks, Petty Betty. You always give me a compliment. I appreciate that. I just had lunch with B yesterday, and he seems to be open to coming back, but we'll see. We had a good talk. Oh my, that's tough. That sucks with an ex. Isn't it? I've never had this happen to me, but I would venture to say if you got cheated on and you know the person or they're your circle of friends or coworkers, that's got to make it much tougher. I remember a relationship I had long ago in my 20s, and my girlfriend had hooked up with one of my really good friends prior to our relationship, and it used to just bug me, really ate at me. And we weren't together at the time, but it was just a good friend of mine had hooked up with her before me, and it bugged me. Just ego, immaturity. Also that you know how that friend is, and it's a good friend of mine. But I just like listening to the stream while I'm at work. Thanks, Odd Carlo. Is there any topics you want me to touch on, Odd Carlo? Has B asked about you? Many times, but I told him that you weren't interested. Yeah, moving. A lot of times with moving, people think, oh, I can't do that. I can't. What's really interesting that it's the story of America, not to be dramatic or anything, but America is full of immigrants. It's full of people trying to find new beginnings. At least that was the story told in history classes to us. I'd also say, Odd Carlo, if Texas is where you want to move and you've done a lot of research, maybe look at Canada, maybe look at some other places too and just compare. But, it's going to be a life experience. It's going to make you grow and it's going to challenge you. So that's important. I would say, hold on a sec here. So this is something I do with tapping right now. They call it the personal peace procedure. I'd probably change the name on that. It's a bit dramatic in the name, but I've done this with many clients, and basically you go 0 to 5, 6 to 10 years old, 11 to 16 years old, and I take notes on any negative stories you've had in your life, any moments you've had where maybe you were in the spelling bee and you lost and you cried in front of everyone and you were embarrassed and you were upset. We'll write that down. And then we'll go, what else came up? I was beat up. This isn't me. I was beat up when I was 10 years old by a group of kids, and they threw mud in my face. It's like, all right, we'll write that down and we'll come back to it. Like I might ask a few questions. Then we go back over all those things and we tap on them. And it's amazing what comes up. It's really amazing the stories that you're carrying that still have a charge. And those stories are making decisions for you because they're gatekeepers. They're the things that make you do what you do. So you don't realize it, but if you make a big decision in your life, a lot of times those decisions are being dictated by what's happened to you in the past. So running through that's a little bit more detailed picture of. Well, let me go in a little bit. Yeah, that's better. Of the tapping points. Right side of the head. And if you just touch those tapping points without saying anything, it calms you down immediately. It calms down your system really quick, especially for people with really high levels of anxiety. If you guys are interested in that, I'm probably going to do another training on this, which even if you aren't a practitioner or a coach or a therapist, you just want to learn how to use this. It's highly useful. Highly useful. Petty Betty, you'd be very popular in Alaska. And there's a high level of single, I think it's one of the highest concentrations of single men. Military bases, oil fields. It'd be a good place for you to go if you're single. I'm serious. It's like if you're fishing for salmon, move to Alaska. I'm serious. I mean, I don't know what it would be like to live there or be, in a salon or something. But if you were looking for men and there's less women, I don't know what the numbers are. I could probably look it up right now. This is where we miss B, but I bet the female to male ratio in Alaska. Let's see what that is. Oh, well, it's not that big a difference. 383,000 males, 349,000 females. So about only 33,000. So I was wrong. Maybe certain areas. U.S. population, male to female, we're curious. And there's only 100. There's only 732,000 living in Alaska. Wow. Oh, there you go. Maybe North Dakota would be better for you. All good, roller girl. I've heard good things about Australia, especially Melbourne, and there's another area that people told me about. Pretty happy with where I live, though. Yeah, you can work anywhere. There you go. I could see you in Montana on a possible dude ranch working with the horses. You could probably transfer your skills over to the horses. Betty, I'll look into it. All right, we got 10 on deck. It looks like no one's bold enough to do the EFT on video, but that's okay. If you have a story you want to send it to writemac.com, send it in and we can review it on one of these live streams like a lot of people do. And really, there's never been more content on everything. And it's really important for you when you have a problem or an issue that is internal to not overstimulate yourself with too much information. Now, when it comes to certain things, I think that's okay, right? But when it comes to like a breakup or how to rebuild your marriage, those kinds of things, I think too much information can push you in different directions or impulsively push you to do things that aren't beneficial to your unique situation. So, for example, today, a client of mine, he's in no contact. He's doing really well. And his ex-girlfriend just contacted him about she was in a small accident, okay? And he's like, look, should I break no contact for this? I'm like, well, is she okay? And he's like, yeah, no, I know she's okay, like through back channels. I'm like, all right. So number one, it's different if she was in an accident where she was in the hospital or if she's in an accident where her car was messed up, but she's okay. That's different, right? Also, what are your morals and values? Is it really important to you to show care in a situation like this where you've been in an accident before? So that's something that you might go find an answer on YouTube, but you're not going to get specific about it. Do you understand what I'm saying? Also, I'd add, do you think she's fishing or reaching? He said yes. If that's the case, then don't. Now, you get a little deeper on it. Well, what if when we break no contact, she brings it up and she's like, oh, you never called me when I had a car accident? It's like, okay, well, there's a few ways you can handle that. You can go, look, we've been broken up a long time. I've been talking to you. I didn't feel, I heard through back channels that you were okay. But if you were in the hospital, I would have been there tomorrow. I go, if that's true. And he goes, oh, yeah. So the circumstances. And then if she gives you shit about that, then you can say, look, we're not together anymore. I'm not the person to call. Now, that is not something I'm telling him to do. That's an option that we can unpack. And then we go through the next option. The next option would be, you could say, I'm so sorry. All right, folks, I got to go. So thanks for joining today. It's been good. It's been grand. If you want to book a live coaching session at writemac.com, we can do that. Otherwise, curtains.